Hi, I'm David Hackoff, Executive Director of NewFest, and I am so excited to welcome you to the Q&A for the world premiere of the film Nora Highland. This is one of 120 plus LGBTQ films that we have as part of this year's festival, but it holds a special distinction, and we will talk about that in just a moment. So we are very excited to be joined today by the film's director, Ryan Spahn, as well as the actors Michael Sue Rosen and Marin Ireland. Hello, all.
Hello, hi.
It's weird to see Marin and Michael in a remote communication platform after seeing them.
Although I'm strangely familiar too. This is basically the extent of my relationship to Marin.
We've never met in person.
I've seen her on stage, of course, and I know her work, but we've never actually met in person. But I feel very connected to her through this odd medium of Zoom.
I don't know if we should ever meet.
I forgot that you guys had never met. That is
I don't think we should. I don't think we should.
It would ruin everything.
It would ruin the magic.
2020 kind of relationship to have.
Yeah.
Ryan, let's start with you. So the film is based on a stage play. Give us a little bit of a background of where the idea for the play came from, and then how you decided to translate it into film.
Great. Thank you again for having us on NewFest. I'm a big fan of the festival, and this has been a very exciting experience. So the play is a play that I wrote about I started writing it about 2 years ago because I'm an actor as well, and I'm an openly gay actor, and it has become increasingly difficult to be openly gay in this industry and not notice the homophobia that still exists for actors when they're being cast. And so I wanted to express this in a play. And so I started writing the play, and then it premiered in a reading at Pride Plays last year at the Rattlestick Theater. And then COVID happened, and we did an online reading. Me and two friends, my partner and my friend, read it because the play is designed for two actors to play all the roles, one male and one female identifying actor playing every role. And when I did the reading, I realized, this could actually work as a film on this platform because it's so much about conversation and it's not really about physical contact, which is a huge draw for filming it on something like this. And so then I asked some people, including Michael and Marin, if they were down to do it, and we started rehearsing it and recording it, and then I spent a couple of months editing it to see if it even worked, because there's obvious limitations with filming something like this way.
Tell me a little bit more about what those limitations are.
Well, there's limitations like internet. There's film quality limitations, and I think more as time has gone on, people have gotten more clever, and there's more programs you can use to possibly add different filters or different lenses even, or there's different things you could use, but this was all shot on Zoom. And so there was a consistency, at least, to the picture quality, which I think was important. And I wanted to make sure it felt as if it was found footage type material, so it needed to feel kind of homegrown as opposed to not intended to be shot this way. I wanted to make it clear that I am intending to do it exactly the way you see it.
So you mentioned this, but I just want to make sure that the audience watching this know this was shot entirely during COVID-19. So this
Correct.
Give us a little bit of a sense, just because this is obviously very recent history. COVID
is a pandemic.
It
hit us in 2020.
Just in terms of timing, mid-March is when the sort of shutdown happened here.
So mid-March, the shutdown happened, and there's this theater website called Play Per View that Jeremy Ween asked me to do a reading of Nora Highland as a play for a fundraiser. And so we did that sometime in mid-March. And that's when I saw, this actually works, this play, in this format. And so then I spent about a month adapting it to the camera because it was not written that way. And then I would say in April into May, we started lightly rehearsing it. And then a couple months later, we just filmed it over a period of, I think, a week. And there were people from all over. There were people like these two who I think were based, well, Michael, you were in New York, but Marin, you were upstate, right? I'm looking down at your box, but I don't know.
I know.
Where that's going.
I know. I was upstate.
And then there was someone in London, there was someone in Los Angeles. And so coordinating all of those people, and pretty much everyone had not met in person, I think, for the most part. And so that was interesting, just people meeting each other in this space and then rehearsing for a week and then recording it.
So, you know, Marin and Michael, you've both done a lot of stage work. You've also done work on screen. And when theater shut down in mid-March, a lot of performers and artists sort of were trying to figure out how to adapt to sort of the new technology and how to keep the art alive. Keep people sort of like creatively inspired. So I'm sure that each of you have participated in sort of online readings or other versions of sort of, you know, theater on screen. How did this feel different than some of those other kind of virtual theater projects?
Michael? You know, the thing for me, I think that felt the most distinct was that because we were shooting something where the scene itself was a Zoom call. So normally, you know, when you're doing these other theater things, it's a play or something, and you're just putting it on Zoom, or it's a whatever other experience it might be, and whatever streaming service you're using. But we were actually doing a Zoom call with each other, and that was the actual scene, is that we were on a Zoom call and we're recording it. So the sort of meta quality of it was really exposing. It felt super vulnerable in that way, to be like, I think Michael felt the same way a little bit, like those times where when you felt yourself acting too much or something. It was like a very strange experience and felt very private also, because it really was just me and Michael. Ryan was there, but we couldn't see him. So it really felt like we were legit just on a Zoom call with each other in our private spaces with no one else around. It was a really kind of a very special experience, which is part of why I know Michael and I feel very bonded in this way. Yeah. We feel very like deeply connected because we shared this very private experience together that, you know, is even hard for me to imagine other people watching it, because I'm like, but it was our little thing, you know. But I feel like that was very, very unique. It had nothing to do with, you know, putting something, squishing something into a different format, because by the time we worked on it, I mean, Ryan had already adapted it for that medium. And that's like, it was so special that way. Really, really amazing.
Totally. I mean, the intimacy of it really surprised me. I think I came into it without really any expectation, but having done a few of what, you know, as you said, like of these virtual readings, and having been a little bit disappointed, I think, in the experience of just being, you know, that was great. I loved getting to work on this material. I loved getting to chat and collaborate with other great artists. But ultimately, this is not what I...
Oh, no.
Did we present this thing? Oh, no. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm back. Basically, just I was surprised by how fun it was to... how it captured my focus as an actor in a new way, in a way that was really exciting, and I really felt like Marin and I were acting together, which is something that I had not felt so much in the other virtual events that I had done. I really felt like Marin and I were connecting, and we were responding to each other in real time in the way that you would with a friend on FaceTime or on Zoom, and that was pretty cool. It was unexpected.
Was there any improv, or was it entirely scripted?
Very much scripted, but we had little tiny beats that Ryan you know, it was actually I was in my apartment in Chelsea, and so little, you know, small riffs on introducing the space or talking to each other about the tea, or, you know, we have all manners of business. But Ryan's written a really sharp little play within a play. I think this scene is very economical, and it does what it sets out to do. And so we were, you know, guided almost entirely by Ryan's.
I think if we felt like I think if we'd had the additional space to be like, oh, and let's just like, I think I would have felt like there would have been no train tracks at all to ride on because you're like in your own house, just talking on the phone to a person. I feel like it really was helpful to not feel like, because otherwise, like, what are we doing? What's going on here? So I feel that really helped me to be exactly what you said, Michael, to have like the like a really tight, solid, like, you know, road to travel in that way. And there were a couple of moments where we could improvise, but I do remember that a specific feeling when things could get a little loose, like in the intro moment, feeling a little like, oh my God, like, what's happening? Like there's a way in which you feel completely untethered to a larger, you know, idea or something.
A lot of what happened as well, I think, if I remember correctly, is you guys would sort of riff during rehearsal, and then we'd start rehearsing those if we liked them. So when we ended up filming it, we actually did the 35-minute scene or whatever in one take and never shot it again.
Yeah, we did one take. That's right. Yeah, it was very intentional, everything that ended up being in the cut, I think, or in that one take.
Yeah. So it's like it ended up being like a perfect cut that I could then play around with rhythms if I wanted to, where I like speed you guys up and play music over it just to like move through some of the stuff. Or there's things to make like time pass, but it all, in theory, could play out in one long, uninterrupted take.
So what was that like for you, Ryan? I'm so curious. One take of sort of like the most important scene, you know, in the film. And you're sitting backstage in Zoom, you know, just.
Well, we had. If I remember, we had like 2 or 3 days after whole days in case it didn't work. For a number of reasons, for internet, because they pass through windows, and like maybe there's a crazy light problem. Like you know, like you can't control a lot of what's happening, which is part of what I liked about it, but it also makes it. The variables are just like, there's so many of them. And she was, you know, Marin was in the country, and like, who knows, like there was a moment where there were a lot of birds that she sounded like she was about to be attacked by birds. And I gave her a note being like, when we start recording this, if the birds get to be too much, you need to instinctually move in the house and go to this other spot that we have selected. Like,
which I think ended up happening, right? Maria?
Yeah, it ended up happening because you can hear the birds like coming together.
That part was really interesting. It was like we were working on camera, but it felt much like a play, and so it was this nice sort of marriage of styles where, you know, on camera you never get to do a 30-minute continuous scene ever, even if it's a, you know. In Birdman, they're pretending like it is. It's like it's not how they actually do it in production. And so to get to really just like run through this scene, it felt like, you know, to use your metaphor of train tracks, Marin, we like got on the train and we were on the train, and it was like A to B, you know, no interruptions, and that was cool. That was like actually kind of scary a little bit for me, but also thrilling. It's really fun.
No, I bet it would have been a lot harder for us if the 3 of us didn't have as much theater experience.
Exactly.
That actually feels fun to be like, oh, great, we'll just go through it, you know, and we know we'll find our way through if something happens, and maybe it'll be useful or whatever it is, you know.
And it also was during a time when we all, I'm speaking for you guys, but I can assume it's correct. We were all like yearning for theater in a way that we couldn't grasp, we couldn't feel, and the were happening like this. Were so new, and they felt nothing like it. And I felt like for that moment that we rehearsed it and ran the scene for camera, it felt theatrical. It felt theatrical, not film theatrical. Like it felt like we were performing in a very live, real way, which was very thrilling.
Well, so we could talk about how the film was made for, you know, probably hours. I'm fascinated by it. But I think Marin and Michael, you're both you both calibrated your performances so beautifully. They really just felt really natural and vulnerable. Like you felt that vulnerability, but not a performative vulnerability. So it was really you know, hats off.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks so much.
But I do want to talk a little bit about what the film is about, because that which we could also spend hours discussing. And I spent my career in theater for, I worked in theater for almost 20 years. I felt like I knew Marin's character, like, and we don't have to name names, but I knew that director. The issue of authenticity in casting, the issue, which is a big issue for us at NewFest in terms of, casting trans actors in trans roles, hiring people to represent a certain folk story. It's a little bit different when it comes to certainly a history of straight actors playing gay roles, and there's arguments on sort of like all sides of this, and I think that the film does a really sort of like thoughtful job of sort of getting at a lot of those sides and exploring sort of intentions behind all those things. So Ryan, I guess let's start with you. Sort of, What about this particular issue sort of felt ripe for the telling in this way?
Well, I feel like there's the obvious thing of you just watch a movie and you can see a certain type of person is playing a certain type of role. So there's the obvious thing that you're just watching, and then you read, you can sit and read an interview with a director, and he or she might say, or they might say, that I cast the best person for the job, which I feel like is where we get into a slippery slope, because I feel like what's happened is so many people are not allowed into that space to even be able to present themselves in the mix. So yes, maybe that director or producer did cast the best person that they were allowed to see, but there's a lot of performers that no one's allowed to see because they don't make it that far. And that, coupled with, I think often the person who gets a job is usually the person who nails the room, if you will, like does an excellent audition or does an interview correctly, or all of these things that are that factor into why someone gets a job. And just simple numbers game, there are certain types of demographics that have those kind of opportunities to practice that skill, to practice that thing that allows them to, knock something out of the park that somebody else who's not given ample opportunity can't compete with that. And so I think that there's a conversation that needs to happen around representation within the actual rooms that are making these sort of decisions, in conjunction with everything that we all know when we just sit and watch a Brokeback Mountain or, Play by Your Name or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think, what you're speaking of, like, definitely parallels a lot of conversations that we've been having in the country around, around opportunity, around race, and around sort of like systems and access, and, who is allowed in the room, who is even considered to be allowed in the room, the pipeline process, all these things. And so it's really, it's such a loaded topic. Michael, as an actor, do you have personal experience in this sort of realm in terms of how how you represent personally sort of informs what opportunities you have professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in many ways, the personal experience of my career has been defined by this question, by this problem. I'd even go so far as to say, of, not just as an out gay man, but also as a biracial Chinese actor. I've been forced to think about representation in the media, representation in entertainment. From the very first audition I ever went on. I'm often read as Latino and have played Latino, and eventually made a point to stop doing that because I felt it was both unfair to the Latino community, but also to me, to be pigeonholed into this one identity that was not mine. And the year that I decided to do that, I didn't work for a year and a half. That's the longest I've ever not worked. And I think it's directly correlative to the choice I made to sort of, I added my middle name so people knew I'm half Chinese. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When it comes to, queerness or gayness, I have more, I would say, a slightly more moderate personal opinion about it. Ryan and I have talked a lot about this. It's something that we as friends, when we're, sitting around having a bottle of wine, get very passionate about. Some 60 plus actors, the number increases every year, have been nominated for the Academy Award for playing gay. And they've all been straight except for one, and it was Sir Ian McKellen. And of course, all of the people that have won Academy Awards for playing gay have also been straight people who have gone on to thank their partners in their speeches. And that is upsetting, and it's not right. Now, whether or not I think that all of those 60 people should have been replaced by 60 gay actors is up for debate. Like, I think that we just need more representation. I still want to protect the idea of what actors do, which is, we tell stories that are not our own. We imagine things, and through that act of empathy, like, we are engaging with the community in a positive way. And I've worked with straight actors. For instance, I was in Torch Song, the iconic gay play on Broadway, and three of the male actors were in fact gay, playing gay, and one was straight, playing gay, and Ward Horton, and I thought he did a beautiful job. And that to me felt fair, and I didn't begrudge Ward at all for accepting that job. I think he did a wonderful job, but the project was more equitable. And even if it had been split, I think I'd be happy. But the idea that it's 60 out of 60, it's more than that, I'm just being conservative, is infuriating and very hurtful. And it absolutely needs to change. And it's something that the industry, it's about time that everyone commits to remedying that problem.
Well, and I think you said something that you said, which is something that definitely we believe at NewFest, which is that we need more representation across the board. We need, of all facets of the spectrum of the LGBTQ experience. Marin, your character is, I'm sure she does not think of herself as being homophobic. I'm sure she does not want to think of herself as being part of a problem. I'm sure most of her friends are gay. And she's, how did you approach those sort of nuances?
It would be so fun to really get to caricaturize her. It would have been so fun to do the SNL Kristen Wiig version. Just to cathartic, because I think, while I haven't been on the receiving end of exactly this conversation, like you said, we all know this person or people like this. I think it actually was tricky for me to step back from that, because I was so angry at her as just, reading the thing from the outside and having to accept that, right, this is also a woman who has been contorting herself around a lot of other obstacles for her career to get to a place where she actually imagines that she will at some point have the power to do the right thing, really. And I think that she thinks of herself as somebody who I'm trying to get there. Give me a minute, but I have to do this shit first. I think she actually believes, or at least I like to think that, in her best self, she believes that, I don't know if it would happen once she got there. Who knows? There'll be a whole other set of, demands. But I think at this point, she still is of the belief that yeah, you got to jump through some hoops. You got to say yes to some things you don't want to say yes to. You have to compromise. And then you get to a place where you can do what you want to do and what you know is the right thing. So I feel that was, to me, that helped, that position to feel like, you know, she's been through a ton on her end, obviously, too. She hasn't had the opportunities she deserved, and she's had to make compromises her whole life, and she's dealing with like her career and kids and all that. And I have also plenty of wonderful friends in this business who did sort of end up dropping off for a while when they had a kid, and that wasn't what they chose to do necessarily. And so she's kind of been going through all of that. So she's trying her hardest to like keep all of that stuff in the air. And I do believe that like, even friends I have who have worked on commercial productions who weren't in this exact quandary had to compromise in ways that kind of haunt them still, that weren't even about things that were this intense, where they felt like what was put out there wasn't what I wanted and my name's all over it. And that's just the reality of a lot of what we're all up against in that way. I mean, that was definitely like, that, but it was a challenge. I was like, oh man, I would love to do one take where I could really go for it as like Cruella de Vil, you know, as I feel like sometimes she is. I feel for her. She's got a lot going on. A lot going on.
She has a lot going on, and there's just a lot going on in this film. I mean, I think it's a testament, Ryan, to sort of what you've crafted here, that we could literally spend hours, you know, talking about, you know, the demands of commercial theater, you know, like how star casting, you know, sort of like plays into, I mean, there's just, the list goes on and on. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that, but I'm so grateful to three of you for being here. Congratulations on,
thank you.
On a really wonderful film.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you for having us, David.
Yeah.
Thank you, NewFest. This is really exciting.
And thank you for joining us. Please do check out www.newfest.org for the rest of the 120 films to see all the kinds of representation that we were just talking about. There's lots of gay actors. There's some straight actors. It runs the gamut. So please do check all that out. Thanks for joining us.